My pleasure to welcome in. Nope, that's not where. Nope. Now I wish you were up. I had a one shot on. A little bit more that way. Nope. No, other way. There you go. Now Lynnell Willingham is center screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, which you can every day at the Team 980, of course, listen to us on the free Odyssey app, where you can also hear Lynnell tonight on Overtime on 106.7. The Fan. Have you recovered from, what do you guys call it, Throwdown Thursday?
I mean, how do you recover?
I don't know.
3 hours of trying to share oxygen with an endangered species.
Oh. I didn't know roosters were endangered.
I called him an industry plant. You're probably going to take exception to some of the things I had to say to him, because some may characterize you the same way.
Go on.
I mean, just the level of passion that he tried to rain on my parade, because I walked in here yesterday. This is when this started, and I said,
yes.
For a guy like me, if you're a part of the Youngest in Charge movement and you haven't gotten to bear witness to the greatness of this franchise, and it's some type of, fairy tale that we were once considered one of the pillar franchises in the NFL and in professional sports.
It's not fairy tale. It's just history. At this point,
it feels like
it's not recent history.
It's not. So my whole thing is and I guess this is how we'll break the ice here. On May the 2nd, 2024, Lynnell Willingham is at the peak of his Commanders fandom. I've never been more optimistic. I've never been more excited. I've never had such honest glee. Because normally, I'm known for speaking to hyperbole every now and then. And sometimes it's very easy for me to buy in and for me to show the symptoms of my Ashburn syndrome, which JP Finley does.
Emphasis on a different syllable there.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Ashburn syndrome.
I can't even get myself back straight. But no, I just feel like, now that the quarterback's been selected, the draft class is in place, rookie mini camp get ready to open up next week, we have a pretty good idea as to what this roster is going to look like heading into training camp. And I'm liking what's on paper. I feel genuinely, and I'm not saying this facetiously, I feel like internally they're going to have their own expectations.
Uh-huh.
I expect them to compete for the division title this year. I expect for them to take a sizable jump forward, because they have done a complete 180 in terms of what the program now is made of. From the coaching staff, to the players, to the new leaders that we have here. And my optimism within the division in particular also has a hell of a lot to do with me being thoroughly unimpressed by what else is happening around the division.
Sure. So, as I feel like is usual with us, unlike when Russell's in this chair and you guys yell at each other for 3 hours, sometimes which I hear through multiple supposedly soundproof walls, I agree with a lot of your points and don't fully agree with your conclusion. And that's why I enjoy talking about this stuff with you, because I will defend you often where people are like, Lynnell's just a hardo, whatever, blowhard, windbag. And I'm like, he sometimes comes to crazy ass conclusions, but don't think that this dude doesn't do his work.
Yes.
And to me, I think you having one, I'm not going to police people's feelings, but since you asked, or since you put it out there, and this would be a very boring segment if I didn't, I think your optimism to say, this is the best I have felt as a Commanders fan in my 20 whatever years it is for people that are of your generation. Now I sound like I'm 100 years old. Is well placed, because this is something that I've been saying in the 9 years that I've been in DC, is even if they could be good for a little while, 2015, not even counting 2020 when they won a division is good. They weren't good. But 2015, back half of the year, that was real. That was a good football team that caught its stride and had a chance going into the playoffs. And Kirk played an all-time poopsie game in 2015 against the Packers at home. But going into that, he was a top 5 quarterback the second half of the 2015 season. Again, played like it doesn't mean he was, but like he was playing at that level. They had Deshaun, they had Pierre. Like their O-line was nasty. Their defense had some really solid players who were playing really well. So there was just a lot going right. They had a good mix of youth and experience that year as well. So there was just a lot of stuff that was going really well. And then obviously a lot of it falls apart. Jordan Reed's injuries killed them because they had an entire offense built around him. And in 2015, he was healthy. And in 2016, 17, 18, he was not. And we know what happened. Yeah. But now that cap of Snyder's not good and Snyder is going to hire bad people, not just bad people as humans, but bad at their jobs. Yeah. And so the only way to be successful is to be lucky. I think that is correct. What I would push back on in terms of the conclusion is what that means for 2024. Because I do think this is like an investment strategy, which is hilarious as I'm in the middle of a 2-hour podcast by Mitchell, or interview with Mitchell Rails on the art of investing. And he talks about how he doesn't look quarter by quarter like most people do who own businesses. He is a 3, 5, 10-year, 30-year, like, can I find someone who 20 to 30 years from now is going to be making me a ton of money? Obviously, football moves at a different pace, but there is a long-termism to this that is going to take some level of time. And I do think, in part, we overestimate how bad like Dallas is. And I'm trying not to fall into this trap because like, should they have addressed running back in the draft? Probably, but they won 12 games last year. And if I'm them, I'm going, what am I supposed to change besides my playoff performance? We won 12 games. And so I think that there is, again, I'm not here to poo-poo your optimism. I certainly think it's warranted, but I do think it's going to take longer than 1 year to flip this team to where they are legitimately competing for a division unless they catch a couple breaks, including, by the way, their number 2 overall pick having an unprecedented season out if you take out what C.J. Stroud did last year.
And I think that's where the majority of my optimism lies. I really do think in 2012, early on in that season, specifically the very first game of the season, I feel like they caught the rest of the National Football League by surprise because there was this unknown element of what they were doing offensively. Not that Cliff is going to come in here and reinvent the wheel of what NFL offense is, but after spending time in college for a second time in his career, being the offensive coordinator only and being game plan specific and not having to worry about some of the other ancillary things that an OC has to deal with, I think the sum of the parts, including the quarterback, give them an opportunity to be really dynamic on offense. And I'm of the belief that last year was an anomaly on defense, and they are nowhere near the worst defense in football, which they were most of last year. And I think this improved coaching staff, I think the improved talent, all of that manifests itself together and works in conjunction to make this a team that is going to be a fringe playoff team. Now, when I say compete for the division, this year,
you don't have them as the favorite, right?
No,
no. Yeah, I mean, I think that's legit, right?
I think that's an important they're battling for 2.
Before people jump on you, is like, does compete mean like you're picking them, or does compete mean like we're 12 weeks in and mathematically they've got more than a shot? Because I can definitely see that. Where I'm going. Because I do think they'll float around 500 most of the year, and until a team, until we get to those division games, the way the NFL schedules it now at the end of the year, that means you've got a shot. Like, we could be sitting here in December being like, all right, their next 4 games are all against the division. They're 2 games behind Philly. Like, if they beat Philly once and then Dallas beats Philly twice, like, the Commanders are right there. Like, that seems feasible to me.
And that is, where I'm at. I think it's going to be one of those years where everyone beats up on each other in the division. I think the schedule gets a little bit stiffer when you got to take on the NFC North, who I think is starting to quickly become one of the better divisions in football. You got the NFC South on your plate, which should be, that gives me optimism. Maybe Washington can go 4-0 in the NFC South. Who knows? But I don't believe there's this sizable gap from this program and what Dallas has built, from this program and what Philadelphia has. Now, I understand this is the beginning of it. We haven't even had rookie minicamp. My opinion will change as OTAs pass, as minicamp passes. Right now, though, post-draft, based on just what they are on paper heading into camp. And they can make sizable changes before camp. I feel like they're in a position where they will be playing competitive football, meaningful football, for the entire 18-week season. That's where I'm at right now.
I don't think that's outrageous. 301-230-0980. How optimistic are you for 2024? More, less, or around the same as Lynnell? I don't know. For what this was sold as, I was expecting to have to be like, whoa, buddy, pump the brakes. But I think of those three categories, Lynnell, I'm probably in the category with you. I'm below you in the category. I don't have as nice of a house or as big of a house on the block, but I think we're in the same neighborhood. 301-230-0980. Are you right there with us? Take your calls next. How optimistic are you about the Commanders? 301-230-0980. Lynnell, summation of position is?
Very, very optimistic. And I'm not cautiously optimistic. I just think, and when I talk about my optimism for this year, it's not really just football centric.
Yeah.
Listening to Josh Harris talk during the media scrum on Friday, he's just such a breath of fresh air compared to what Daniel Snyder was. He's already spoken to the media more times in a calendar year than Dan has his entire tenure here.
100%.
And just to hear how personal he takes this job and how much it means to him, I'm a sucker for it. It's the best way that I can put it, and it's call it what it is, because he may end up being full of crap. I doubt it, based off the track record of his other professional sports teams. But he just oozes passion, and I think some people.
But he also oozes competence. Like that's the thing. Is like you listen to him, you listen to Rails, like you listen to Ein, and it's very clear. Or you listen to Magic talk about team building.
Yes.
Like as funny as Magic's Twitter account is, like you listen to Magic not on Twitter, and you're like, oh. Yeah.
He gets it.
Yeah, this guy's really smart. And so I think that competence, which by the way, like listen to Adam Peters talk. Listen to, Snyder to Harris is one thing. Listen Peters to Bruce Allen. Oh my God.
Night and day. But then it's just the idea that, and this is why I keep talking for the younger sector of the fan base. We've had ownership, head coach, GM on the same page, but they weren't competent folks. Vinny Serrato was an agent that was tasked with running the football operation. Bruce Allen has never had control in an organization. Yeah, I know he may have won Executive of the Year in Oakland. It was John Gruden. Everyone with a football brain knows that. So just the stark contrast of having real, as you put it, competent people, not only just competent, highly sought after. Adam Peters was the most sought after talent evaluator in the entire process, and he chose this organization. That alone, I don't care what quarterback they picked. That's why I coined my phrase, we're at the mercy of the evaluator. We begged for this.
Yeah.
We begged for this. Let him do his job. So you all out there that have your panties in a wad and are in a tizzy over the tackle situation, don't go back and look at why the tackles struggled last year. Go back and look at why the entire offense struggled last year. And Chris Russell gets on my case for this. I happen to think last year's issues were more centered in the coaching staff not putting guys in the best position to succeed than all of a sudden the players just stinking. Defensively, the year before, 2022, this was a hands down, universal, we all would have said it was a top 10 defense.
Well, yeah, they were by every metric. And I also like to point out that any other types of underwear that are also in a wad also should not be there over tackles.
Boxers, Hanes, briefs, compression shorts.
Yeah.
Don't get your undergarments in a wad.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be upset about.
I thought that was worth pointing out.
Yes. And I really do feel like no matter how this year finishes, no matter what Jayden ends up turning into, the fact that they have gone through the process the right way, it gives me all the relief in the world that this is something that I can get behind. And I'm not some cheerleader for the team, but I said it earlier. This is the time to go buy your jerseys. This is the time to, if you want to get back in and get season tickets, this is it. The time is now. I genuinely feel that.
No, 100%. There's like a competent process, and you look at like how they have a vision of, and you're like, oh, that sounds
and they
really
tell
smart.
it to us. It's one thing to have a vision, and then they play this role of we're way smarter than you, so we're not gonna, tip our hand. They've been very forthcoming about how they've gone about their process.
Yeah,
even though
what they look for, and it's not, and then they follow through on it because it's not that hard to say the right stuff. It's hard to do it, and like Adam Peters does it. Let's go to Aaron. Aaron, thanks for calling. Get us started. How optimistic are you for 2024? as you join me and Lynnell here on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Aaron?
What's going on, fellas?
How optimistic are you? Like, there's a record, just your level of excitement, 1 to 10. What you got?
Look, right. So I was born in '91. I'll be 33 this year, right? 2012, and I don't want to, dwell too much on 2012 RG3, but that was like the best thing I ever seen as far as being a skin sports fan.
Yeah.
DC sports fan at that. This year, I'm as optimistic. I'm more optimistic than I was, the off season when we drafted RG3. Because, like, take Jayden Daniels out the picture, whatever quarterback we would have got, or if we had to stick with Marcus Mariota, or if we had Sam Howell, it doesn't matter. All the things that we did before that in the last couple of years with the new ownership, the coaching changes, we took most of Dallas's defense from their coaches to some of their players, and they were a top defense for the last couple of years. So we're not even talking about, our quarterback and the number 2 overall pick. We're talking about everything they did around that, and even after that, the late round picks. Outside of Alfred Morris, who was unexpected in 2012, we didn't expect anybody but RG3 to bring us something different. This year is way more than Jayden Daniels. I don't think anybody else in the division has done anything spectacular to take them above what they were beforehand. And we just I think we got the element of surprise in so many different areas. And I just think winning the division is not far-fetched. I think 10 or more wins is definitely,
Well, that's where I get, Aaron, thanks for the call. Like, I just remind folks.
Specific, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Like, 10 wins is really hard. And, like, obviously we know how hard 12 wins is. This team hasn't done it since, 91? Or whatever it was, 93, 90, whatever, last Super Bowl year. They won 12. That's the last time they did it. So, like, getting double-digit wins is really hard. It's easier now because there's an extra week. But I do think that, like, just consistently competing week to week is not an unreasonable expectation. And by the end of last year, like, that would have been a miracle to just be competitive in any given week. And I think there's a clip or a question that Ryan Clark asked Dan Orlovsky on the Pivot. When Orlovsky was on. I don't know if you saw this clip, Lynnell, when, and basically Dan was like, forget giving a young quarterback a running game and an O-line and all this kind of stuff. Give him a defense. Like, you want to know what makes a quarterback's life easier as a young player? Hey, dude, go score 14 and we have a chance. Versus, hey, man, I need 28 today.
Yeah.
Like, it changes everything about how you play. The pressure you feel, the risk mitigation. Decision-making, all of that. Like, you're just okay. You're okay. Like, hey, every drive ends in a kick. If we punt, we punt. But we're not turning the football over. We're not trying anything crazy. Like, it just changes everything. And I do think this season, while they don't have the pass rushers, I think, to be elite, I think they have the coaching and the players to be very solid. And if they can generate turnovers at the level that Dallas traditionally has and Quinn's defenses have and Witt's defenses have, now we're talking about a defense that can be like pushing top 10, nevertheless floating somewhere around 15. I do think you need the Parsons, the Von Miller, the whatever, like pick your best defenses of the last decade, last half decade, especially when this league has become so pass happy, and they don't have that. So that's going to be hard to push like top 5 eliteness, but is like being the 12th best defense in the league unreasonable? And if you pair that with a very good running game, like, does that create competitive late game football week in, week out? Yeah, it does. And that's a formula that they can follow. And I think that they actually will.
That's the big hope and question mark. We play the promo every week here on Team 980 every day. Logan saying, 2021, they ran the ball. Are they going to stick with it? We had this predict what this offense is going to be. And I agree with Chris Russell with what he said. I think we're going to see, a lot more 11, 12, 13. I don't think they're going to have to go 3 wide, 4 wide every play. One, I don't think they have the depth in the receiver room to do that.
Like, Cliff used a lot of 12 his last year in Arizona. And, like, that's why Sinnett's here. And, like, not to get too deep into it because we're up against the clock, but, like, if you want to know more about why Sinnett's so important, go listen and Take Command from earlier in the week when we talked about it. Shameless plug, but a natural one. Because the very simple premise is that when he's on the field, you can be in 12, you can be in 21. Like, you can split him out and you're kind of in 11. Like, but the defense is going to have to match in base, and that gives you options. And like that kind of flexibility offensively very clearly is something that Cliff is ready to embark on in the same way that Kyle has. And in his last year in Arizona, his last 2 years in Arizona, there was a lot of Kyle Shanahan-y looking stuff in that Cliff Kingsbury offense. And I do think that's something that we're going to look at this year. All right, thanks for the call there. Thanks for a couple other. We're going to have to, unfortunately, keep it moving. Lynnell's got to go get ready for overtime, and we have never read the comments to get to, but appreciate everyone who chimed in. Lynnell, great stuff, dude. What you got coming up on overtime tonight?
10-7.
10-7.
10-7. Early pre-rookie mini camp prediction.
Okay.
10-7.
Okay, and then overtime tonight?
Overtime, we got a lot of draft talk. We got Emory Hunt from CBS Sports HQ, and then we got Trevor Sikkema joining us at 8:15
Oh, nice.
to talk draft.
Trevor's going to do a full Take a Man with us next week, so looking forward to going super deep with him.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.